Washington and across the country after last week's deadly siege on the U.S. Capitol. The inauguration, which usually draws hundreds of thousands of spectators, has already been scaled back dramatically because of the pandemic. Meanwhile, President Trump says he does not plan on attending the inauguration. The National Mall will be closed to the general public on Inauguration Day due to security concerns. The FBI is tracking an extensive amount of concerning online chatter, including calls for armed protests leading up to next week's presidential inauguration. The timing of President Trump's impeachment trial could come into clearer focus today when House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is expected to take questions about her next steps at a morning news conference at the U.S. Capitol. President Trump, now the first president in U.S. history to be impeached twice, falsely claims he lost due to widespread voting fraud. He will likely be the first president to face an impeachment trial after leaving office. According to Senate rules, the trial would start the day after the charge is sent over by the House. The Senate is scheduled to return to Washington on Tuesday, the day before Biden's inauguration. U.S. prosecutors now believe supporters of President Trump plan to capture and assassinate elected officials in their siege of the Capitol building last week. 3 members of Congress introduced a bill to honor U.S. Capitol Police Officer Eugene Goodman with the Congressional Gold Medal for his bravery and quick thinking when President Trump's supporters stormed the Capitol last week. He's been identified as the officer seen leading rioters away from the Senate chamber in that viral video. And Texas Governor Greg Abbott is speaking out to criticize the January 6th riot in Washington, D.C. President Trump has refused calls to resign after he was impeached earlier this week. He's been extremely opposed to the idea and has forbidden aides from mentioning former President Richard Nixon, who had resigned after the House Judiciary Committee voted to move ahead with his impeachment proceedings in 1974. President-elect Joe Biden has unveiled a $1.9 trillion coronavirus plan to end the crisis of deep human suffering by speeding up vaccines and pumping out financial help to those struggling with the pandemic's prolonged economic fallout. It's called the American Rescue Plan. And as he unveiled this plan to tackle the coronavirus pandemic, he's boosting financial aid for Americans and businesses. He pledged $1,400 checks for individual Americans on top of the $600 provided in the most recent stimulus package. He would also extend a temporary boost in unemployment benefits. The minimum wage would be increased to $15 an hour, and there would be increased tax credits for families with children. President-elect Joe Biden's plan to boost the COVID-19 vaccine rollout, including by spending $20 billion to create mass vaccination centers, should help speed up putting shots in the arms of millions of Americans. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden has chosen former Food and Drug Administration Commissioner David Kessler to help lead the U.S. COVID-19 vaccine program, Operation Warp Speed. While the United States has distributed more than 30 million vaccine doses, a little over 11 million have been administered as of yesterday. The vaccines have been rolled out unevenly across the U.S., but 4 states in the Deep South have had particularly dismal inoculation rates: Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, and South Carolina. Texas, though, is the first state to give more than 1 million vaccines, and Governor Greg Abbott very proudly announced that yesterday. More than 90,000 people could die from coronavirus in the next 3 weeks, according to a forecast published by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So far, the United States has more than 23 million cases and more than 384,000 deaths. The CDC also confirming 76 cases of the new, more transmissible COVID variant in the U.S., 32 of those cases detected in California and San Diego and San Bernardino counties. International COVID-19 vaccine polls show higher mistrust of the Russia and Chinese vaccine than those developed in Germany or the United States. And many European Union nations say they are receiving lower than expected supplies of the vaccines and complain in internal meetings of uncertainty over future deliveries. Illusionist Sigrid Fischbock, one half of German-American magic duo Siegfried and Roy, has died at the age of 81 of pancreatic cancer. Federal authorities seized nearly 300 bricks of cocaine during a routine X-ray baggage inspection after a U.S. Virgin Islands charter flight landed at an executive airport in South Florida, and this news out of Miami. And hundreds of Central Americans have gathered for a caravan aiming to reach the United States, departing early this morning. This migrant caravan hoping to reach the country. U.S. military has met its goal of reducing the number of troops in Afghanistan to about 2,500 by today, a drawdown that appears to violate a last-minute congressional prohibition. And 3 top United Nations officials all called on the United States to revoke its decision to designate Yemen's Houthis a foreign terrorist organization, warning it could push the country into a large-scale famine and chill peace efforts. Iran's paramilitary Revolutionary Guard forces today held a military exercise involving ballistic missiles and drones in the country's central desert amid heightened tensions over Tehran's nuclear program and a U.S. pressure campaign against the Islamic Republic. Syrian Air conducted its first flight in a decade between the northern city of Aleppo and Lebanon's capital of Beirut early this morning, resuming a round-trip route that's been halted since Syria's conflict began in 2011. And as Sudan's transitional government shifts the nation from the Islamist rule of ousted strongman Omar al-Bashir, a new school book has sparked controversy for reproducing Michelangelo's iconic creation of Adam, according to Khartoum's government. A number of refugees fleeing violence following last month's contested presidential election in the Central African Republic has doubled in a week to 60,000. A Dakar rally racer who was badly injured after crashing his motorbike has died aboard a medical flight from Saudi Arabia to France. And the family of Libyan Abdel Bassat al-Megrahi, the only person found guilty of the 1988 Lockerbie plane bombing which killed 270 people, have failed to overturn his conviction after losing a posthumous appeal in a Scottish court today. Sheldon Adelson, the billionaire casino magnate who made prolific donations to right-wing politicians and causes in the United States and Israel, was laid to rest in Jerusalem this morning. Britain's government banning travel from South America and Portugal to ensure a new variant of COVID-19 found in Brazil doesn't derail the country's vaccination program. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the World News on Radio Caravan. A 6.2 magnitude earthquake in Indonesia's Sulawesi Island has killed at least 35 people and injured hundreds today, with the meteorological agency warning of aftershocks possibly strong enough to trigger a tsunami. Wearing a giant furry hat, black leather jacket and a beaming smile, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un introduced the world's strongest weapon, a new submarine-launched ballistic missile, at a nighttime parade in Pyongyang. The display of North Korea's military might followed a rare congress of the ruling Workers' Party, during which he denounced the United States as his country's foremost principal enemy and vowed to strengthen the North's nuclear war deterrent. A city in northern China building a 3,000-unit quarantine facility to deal with an anticipated overflow of patients as COVID-19 cases rise ahead of the annual Lunar New Year travel rush. And on the occasion of the 73rd Army Day today, Indian Army Chief General Narawane said that the Indian Army took swift action during the India-China line of actual control standoff to safeguard the territorial integrity of the nation. International Monetary Fund Chief Kristalina Georgieva has praised India for taking very decisive steps to deal with the coronavirus pandemic and its economic consequences, and asked the country to do more this year to support an accelerated transformation of the economy. India, one of the world's largest manufacturers of inoculations, plans to offer 20 million doses of the vaccine to its neighbors. And those will be Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Seychelles and Mauritius. Prime Minister Modi will launch the pan-India rollout of the COVID-19 vaccination drive at 10:30 tomorrow morning through video conferencing. There are 3,006 session sites across all states and union territories, and they will be virtually connected during this launch. At least 60 hospitals across the country, including the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, have been directed to prepare for video conferencing facilities. India's COVID-19 caseload rose by almost 16,000 people testing positive for the infection in one day. And the ongoing meeting discussing 3 agricultural laws between the union government and farmers did not come to a resolution. The 9th round of talks between the centre and the representatives of the farmer unions protesting on Delhi borders against the 3 newly passed farm laws began at the Vigyan Bhavan earlier today. Protesting farmer unions stuck to their demands for a complete repeal of the 3 contentious farm laws. Prime Minister Modi does not respect farmers and wants to tire out those protesting against the centre's new agri-laws, according to Congress leader Rahul Gandhi, who also said that the talks are being held with the protesting farmer leaders are part of the government's delaying tactics. As Congress observed Kisan Adhikar Divas against the farm laws across the country, Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi Vadra were there present for that. And on her 65th birthday, Bahujan Samaj Party Supremo Mayawati announced that her party will not forge any alliance for the upcoming state assembly polls in Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand. And Mumbai police told the Bombay High Court that it will not take any coercive action till the 29th of this month against Republic TV editor-in-chief Arnab Goswami. Pakistani diplomats believe that India getting chair of 3 United Nations Security Council committees could be looking ominous, and that those are the Taliban Sanctions Committee, Counter-Terrorism Committee and Libya Sanctions Committee. A Pakistan International Airlines plane was held back in Malaysia today as part of a legal dispute between the airline and another party, the National Flag Carrier, reporting today. An education minister announcing a revised schedule of the reopening of schools. As Sindh reported almost 1,500 new coronavirus cases, and Karachi has the highest rate at 15.97%. That, ladies and gentlemen.